What's going on, my soul family? Welcome back to another episode of the Awake with Jake show. On today's episode, I'm going to be dropping in and sharing with you 7 keys for your spiritual awakening. Now, I want to firstly say that when you start the spiritual awakening process, it feels like you are going through hell because you are bringing up all of the repressed parts of yourself, all of the shadow aspects of yourself, the shame, the neglect, the fear, the abandonment. All of that stuff is being brought up to the surface so you can see it clearly, so you can heal it. And this isn't to scare you away from healing or your awakening. This is to excite you because this is how we get free. We get free by going into our shadows, by turning on our inner light so we can illuminate the darkness. Now, before I get into all of this, I want to share with you something really exciting. On November 14th, I'm doing a live virtual workshop for the embodiment of your masculine and feminine energies. In this workshop, I'm going to be teaching you the framework to understand masculine and feminine energies, sexual polarity, what your natural core energy is. I'm going to be teaching you about masculine and feminine wounds and how to heal them. And I'm also going to be sharing with you the top 3 embodiment practices for both masculine and feminine energies. If you would like to register for this workshop, go to jakewooder.com/workshop to register today. There's only limited seats available, so be sure to grab your seat right away. The first thing that I want to share with you, the first key that I want to share with you is learn who you are beyond your ego identity. Now, this one's really tough because we were brought into this reality with a lot of ego projections. And most people right now in this world are walking around with who they think they are. They're really attached to their somebodyness. I am a lawyer that is 37 years old from Brooklyn, New York. No. That is not who you are. That is what you are. Your ego identity, your ego attachment to that physical form and that social status is your ego identity. Most people have no idea who they are at a soul level. When you understand that you are a soul, a divine soul living in this body, and this body is your vessel, things become a lot easier to deal with in this human experience because you're not so attached to this physical body. You're not so attached to the emotions of this body. So as you start to transcend the human suffering, the ego desires, you wake up your soul consciousness. Now the question becomes, who am I? Who am I beyond my ego identity? Now this question took me many years to truly understand and embody because I was so attached to who I thought I was. And most of who I was a projection of what other people thought of me. I was just reliving my inner child wounds and all of the validation that I didn't get, the acceptance that I didn't have, the approval that I didn't have. But when I started doing all of that self-work and doing all the work within myself, everything started to change because I was able to peel back the layers of my somebodyness, of my attachments to my ego desires, and see myself more clearly. You see, the ego veils us from being able to see our true soul essence. If all of your veils were removed right now in this moment, you would be blinded by the divinity of your soul, by the light of your soul essence. And many people have forgotten that because they're bogged down by their ego desires of control, of judgment, of comparison, of division, of separation. All of the ego stuff that is controlling them at a mind level. The ego is controlling your mind to not be free of this suffering. Your ego continues to live in these trauma loops of all of the abandonment, the fear, the shame, the neglect, all of the stuff that you have repressed deep within inside of yourself. And your ego just keeps feeding on that unworthiness. And it's all about serving the self. But the thing is, when you go beyond the ego desires, your thinking changes from just me to we. And you start to see everything as a collective consciousness. You start to see that the planet has a consciousness, Animals have consciousness. Other people have consciousness. And you see the divinity in all things. So once you start to awaken and your third eye opens, you start to go beyond your ego identity. So I'm going to present you the question of, who are you? Who are you before you were told who to be? Who are you beyond just your ego desires? And it's okay if you don't know this question right now. I invite you to sit with this question during meditation throughout your day and just keep asking yourself the question, who am I? Because when you know who you are, it is much easier to operate in this human life, in this human experience, because other people will not project on you who to be, how to act, how to show up. And you won't be so manipulated and controlled by other people's egos. And that's really what's going on right now is a lot of people shame other people based on their own ego projections and try to control people with that shame. But when you are truly rooted in who you are, in the divinity within you, you don't sway. You become like the palm tree in the really bad windstorm that flows with the wind instead of fighting against it. Number 2, realize that enlightenment is not a destination. Let me just say this one more time. Realize that enlightenment is not a destination. I think a lot of people think that spirituality is like a checklist. Oh, done my inner child work, check. Up, done shadow work, check. Up, done breath work, check. Up, harmonize my masculine and feminine energies, check. It is not a checklist because the soul is eternal. So we are always further awakening and further deepening ourselves back into that state of nothingness, nothingness. Remember, our soul is not attached to anything. Our ego is attached to everything. So as you realize that you live here in this present moment, and when you anchor yourself into this present moment, there is no future, there is no past. And the reason why so many people suffer is because they're living in this idea that the future exists, and they're always casting out into the future their ego desires. Oh, I would love to have a future partner. I would love to have a future business that generates $10 million a year. And it's all about the future thinking. You're fantasizing about the future. But most people never really live in the present moment. And until you can live in the present moment, you cannot fully enjoy this human experience. Now, that may be hard for some people to understand and fully grasp because the ego is really luring. It's really attractive. It's really good at pulling you into the future or pulling you into the past, reliving your old trauma, which there is some benefit to bringing up that trauma and bringing up the past experiences so you can identify and heal it. But the key here is to not get stuck in the past or get stuck in the future and learn how to train yourself to be in the present moment. So say this now with me. I am in this present moment. I feel the divinity flowing through me. I am here now. And you notice that when you are anchored in the present moment, you're not attached to anything. There's no thoughts, there's no thinking, there's no racing mind, there's no mind chatter. And maybe think of the last time that you had this experience. Maybe you were watching a sunset or watching a child play. When was the last time you were truly in the present moment? Or are you just so distracted by all the noise of the outer world and what's going on out there? Let me give you a real secret here. Nothing out there is going to get you free because freedom and enlightenment happens from within yourself. And this is not a process that can be rushed or forced. So the more you grab at things outside of yourself, the more you suffer. Number 3, allow yourself to be vulnerable and release stored pain. Trauma gets trapped within our energetic field. And when we experience trauma, it gets lodged deeply within us. Now, because our ego puts us in this fight or flight mode, trying to survive from the trauma, we just keep reliving the trauma. Because energetically, we're attracting that more to us based on the vibration of our energy. So as you allow yourself to feel vulnerable, as you allow yourself to go into the shadows and into the depths of your pain, you start to actually release that pain, because you have to be willing to first feel into your pain, your shame, all of the stuff in order to release it. And we release it through crying. We release it through getting it out of our system. Imagine it like drinking a lot of water to flush your system when you have toxins in your system. You use the tears of your body to generate this releasing process, this healing process. But we only can do this through vulnerability. And I've heard a lot of people say, I'm numb, I can't feel. And that's okay, because keep going into it. And the more you go into the stored pain, eventually you will start to feel the repressed parts of yourself. And when you start to feel this emotional body wakes up and it breaks open inside of you. Now, the reason many people can't feel is because they have repressed the feminine parts of themselves, because they have been taught that vulnerability, feelings, emotions, all feminine aspects are weak. So if you're conditioned to believe that something is weak, you're not going to use that. You don't want to use that. You think about back in school when you played dodgeball, you always wanted to pick the most athletic, strongest kids to be on your team. Or that's normally what happened. Those kids were generally picked. Now, we're conditioned to push aside weak things. And we're taught that feminine energy is weakness. But it is so far from weakness. And it has its own strengths, just like masculinity has its own strengths as well. So that is why there's the yin and yang energies to create harmony and balance within yourself. And if you are imbalanced and you have repressed the wounded aspects of yourself, your feelings, your emotions, all of this stuff, because you're afraid to be vulnerable, start by giving yourself permission to feel your pain. Say it with me right now. I give myself permission to feel my pain. I give myself permission to feel my pain. And as you start to do that, you wake up the repressed parts of yourself, all of the stuff that you've been sweeping underneath the carpet, that's been piling up really high. It's time to start looking at that and releasing it. And the more you do this, the more you free yourselves. It is like literally peeling layers off of you, peeling weights off of you that are slowing you down, that are not allowing you to fly. That's what happens when we don't allow ourselves to feel. Now, if you can't feel your pain, you also will not be able to feel the vibration of love. So we so often store our joy and happiness and love below our pain. We've numbed ourselves so deeply that we can't feel anything. And then we try to get into a romantic relationship, and we are either the emotionally unavailable ones, or we're in a relationship with somebody that's emotionally unavailable. And it's very difficult to be in this type of relationship, whether you are the emotionally unavailable one or you're with someone that's emotionally unavailable. And this person, you or your partner, needs to learn how to feel their feelings in a way that with the intention to release. And this is a beautiful process. This healing process is very beautiful, but it's also very painful at times. It's very painful to bring up stored trauma, because remember, it got stored with pain. And what gets stored with pain is also going to release with the feelings of discomfort. But this is why we go into that. We go into the shadows because we're allowing ourselves to release that pain from our systems. Number 4, stop seeking external validation and accept yourself. This one's really hard. A lot of people don't accept themselves. So when you don't accept yourself, what do? You project your control, your ego, and other stuff onto people because of your lack of acceptance. You know what it feels like to be shamed. But often we project onto others what we don't heal within ourselves. So we're projecting our shame. We're projecting our control. We're projecting our fears onto other people because we feel inadequate and insecure within our own selves because we don't accept ourselves. But going back to point number 1, how can you accept yourself if you don't even know who you truly are? And this is why we sit with the question of who am I? And what parts of yourself have you not loved and accepted? That part right there, the one that just jumped up at you. What is that? And you just sit with that and you feel into that and you ask yourself, why am I not accepting of this? Why don't I accept this part of myself? And it's not about neglecting the wounded parts of yourself. It's actually about loving the wounded parts of yourself. Because the more you can love the wounded parts of yourself, the more you heal those aspects. Number 5, cut energetic cords with people who have hurt you through forgiveness. Now, for some people, they may not be ready to forgive because the ego is still so attached to that pain, to that experience, and too attached to hating that person and resenting that person. And that's fine if that's where you are right now. But if you are truly ready to surrender and forgive, you can allow for that healing to take place. Because forgiveness is an internal process. It's not about having a conversation with the people who have hurt you. It's about doing it all within. And the more you forgive people, you sever that energetic cord between you and that person, that other energy that hurts you. You free yourself and you feel lighter the more you start to forgive, because forgiveness is the foundation of our healing. And there's one person that you should not forget to forgive: yourself. So many people are so critical of themselves, so judgmental of themselves, so hard on themselves because they haven't forgiven themselves. And they beat themselves up constantly because they're forgetting to forgive themselves. And as you start to forgive yourself, you may feel a lot of pain. You may feel a lot of sorrow. You may even have to grieve. But as you forgive, you create a better place to live. And forgiving those who have hurt you, you realize it's because they hurt too. They hurt within themselves, and they didn't know how to love and accept you. But you're learning how to love and accept you. And you're not going to continue down this path of hating other people and resenting other people, because what you do to others, you're only doing to yourself. When you pollute someone else's water stream, you're only polluting your own water stream. So forgiveness activates this purification of other people's water streams, and you free other people through your own inner forgiveness. Now, the idea of forgiveness to the ego is not possible. So you have to go beyond your ego and go into your heart to start to love and forgive people. And the fastest way that we can identify who we need to forgive is the question: who have you closed your heart to? Who have you closed your heart to? And you sit with this and you allow your heart to start to open. And everything begins to shift in your life. Number 6, discover a purpose that is deeper than just your ego desires. Now, discovering a purpose that is deeper than just your ego desires takes you going beyond your ego, because your ego will keep you stuck at a job that you don't really want to be at. Your ego will keep you stuck in a relationship that you don't want to be in. Your ego will keep you stuck in a location you don't want to live in. Your ego will keep you in these old grooves and these old patterns because it's operating on comfort, on survival, and familiarity. That's what the ego is really good at. So as we go beyond our ego, we start to see through the veils of the illusion, and we realize that we are here to serve. We realize that through our own healing, we can actually help others heal. And not in a way where we're walking around pointing the finger at people at their wounds and saying, oh, there's a wound right there. You need to heal that one. You got some spinach in your teeth. Nobody likes to be told that. So I would invite you here to not give unsolicited advice, to be open and loving and be safe. And through this safety, through your own transformation, you inspire other people to heal and transform. So your purpose is to first discover your purpose. And then it becomes sharing that purpose with the world. Now, I also want to say you can have multiple purposes. It's not about just one purpose and one path. You can have many purposes in this life, but oftentimes we seek a deep, meaningful purpose when we start to awaken, because the soul knows that it came back here to get free and help others get free, to serve other people at a very deep level in whatever way that is. Being the vibrational essence of love is service, and you can do that through many different forms. whether through art or music or healing work, singing, whatever you do. You can do it through carpentry. You can be a janitor and be of the service at the highest vibrational essence of love. It's how you're showing up in this world. It's not about your ego status and your social identity of who you think you're supposed to be. It's about what you are being in this present moment. And if you are being the vibrational essence of love, it has nothing to do with what your job title is. Your purpose has nothing to do with your job title. This is a calling. This is a sacred calling. This goes beyond just a career and an ego identity. And number 7, which probably is the most important thing I have on this list, is practice balancing your inner masculine and feminine energies. When you do not have harmony between your inner masculine and your inner feminine, your life can be very chaotic. For example, if your feminine is imbalanced, you may be emotionally imbalanced. Your emotions are all over the place. You're very scattered. You're very disorganized. You have no structure in your life. And maybe you're constantly crying and you just can't feel grounded in this moment. So what you do is you start to bring in your masculine energy. You bring in more structure, more organization, more detail into your life to give you the sense of groundedness, to give you the sense of presence. Now, if your masculine's in balance, you may be cutting off from your feminine energy. Your masculine's in balance when you're overworking, you're overthinking. Your yang energy is burning too hot. So you need some more of the cooling feminine energy to kind of cool you down a little bit. So you bring in more of your feelings and you start to recalibrate and feel your way through your imbalances. Now, these are all things I'm going to be teaching at this workshop on November 14th. So once again, if you want to register for that, go to jakewooder.com/workshop to sign up today and grab one of those limited seats before they sell out. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. I hope that it brought you a ton of value. If it did, please take a screenshot of it and share it to your Instagram story. It would mean the world to me. Make sure you tag me. As always, stay open, stay loving, and stay connected to that beautiful source within you.